As I walk out of this chamber, I feel fortunate to have served the American people.
Former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy voted out of the speakership just days after working to avoid a government shutdown. Now the House of Representatives is essentially shut down until a new speaker is elected. Thanks so much for joining us today. What a week it was in Washington, with a lot of questions still about what we'll see here in the days ahead. We'll hear from several members of Indiana's delegation coming up. But first, let's start on Capitol Hill. Washington correspondent Anna Wernicke has a look at the next phase in this process as GOP lawmakers try to elect a new House Speaker.
Several names have been touted on Capitol Hill as potential new speakers, and Republicans say whoever that person is going to have a tough job, as they will first need to unify the party. The race for the Speaker's gavel is already underway, just hours after 8 Republicans voted with Democrats to remove California Congressman Kevin McCarthy from the post. Ohio Republican Jim Jordan announced he's ready to step in.
Are you planning to run for the Speaker position?
No, we are. Yeah, we are.
House Majority Leader Steve Scalise also wants the job and says his time as the second-ranking House Republican makes him ready to take on the top reins. Oklahoma Republican Kevin Hern says he's also considering a bid.
I'm probably one of the most conservative members in Congress.
Hern, Scalise, and Jordan met with the Texas Republican delegation on Wednesday, hoping to lock in support from the state's 25 Republicans.
I think we need to be pointing our guns outward, not at each other.
Have an open mind.
Texas Republicans Jody Arrington and Chip Roy say they haven't decided who they plan to endorse. But Roy says whoever it is needs to be ready to get to work.
We've got a lot of important things we need to do on spending on the border with respect to Ukraine, a lot of important decisions.
The House is in recess until next Wednesday, when they plan to convene and elect a new speaker. For now, in Washington, I'm Anna Wernicke. Back to you.
Anna, thanks. Indiana's congressional delegation voting along party lines this week. The state's 2 Democrats voted to remove McCarthy, while Indiana's 7 Republicans all voted unsuccessfully to keep him as speaker. We spoke with some of them this past week.
We have a handful of people who just want to create chaos, and that's very unfortunate. That's not how you govern.
We need to show the Republicans that we do hold our leaders accountable, and the next speaker will think now, is he or she able to deliver for the people?
It's obvious that since the speaker's race in January, the divisions are very stark and deep on the other side. And, you know, I pray for my Republican friends. Speaker McCarthy lost his conference's trust. And he really showed time and time again that he was not willing to work with the Democrats in order to compromise to get things done on behalf of the American people.
It is concerning to me that we are sidelined. You know, we have so many things we need to do,
including the new deadline to keep the government open just about 40 days from now. This week, we also spoke with 2 Indiana Republicans with 2 different views on who should be the next speaker. First, here's part of my conversation with Congressman Jim Banks.
This has never happened before in American history. All of us have a lot of unanswered questions about the process and where we go from here. It's critical that Republicans unify, pick a speaker, and move forward as fast as we can to get back to work. We have another pending government shutdown in 42 days, and we need a speaker in place to go negotiate with the president and the Democrat-led Senate to get a spending bill on the floor of the House that's conservative, that fulfills our commitment to the American people to cut spending and address the national debt and move forward. Among a lot of other things, we need to pass a farm bill. We need to pass a defense bill. We have a lot of other important work that we have to get done before the end of the year, and it takes a speaker in place to do it. As I understand it, the only thing that can happen on the floor of the House with an acting speaker is a matter that would deal with the continuity of government, which would be a spending bill to avert a government shutdown. So nothing else can happen on the House floor, but there are a lot of important things that need to happen. That's why we have to get this resolved as soon as we can.
You're supporting Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan for Speaker. Why?
We need a bold leader who can unify the Republican Party. Jim Jordan, to me, is the obvious choice. He has a big profile around the country. The Republican members of Congress trust him. Our conservative voters trust him. He's a great communicator. He doesn't back down. What I believe Republicans need right now is a speaker like Jim Jordan who can move us forward. There are a lot of other good people who are talking about it, who are running for it. But to me, Jim Jordan is the obvious choice.
Banks, of course, running for Senate next year. This week in a statement, the chair of the Indiana Democrats called Jim Jordan a conspiracy theorist and an enabler for harmful and divisive rhetoric, and called Banks' endorsement of Jordan telling, in their words. Former President Trump now backing Jordan for Speaker as well. This week, I also spoke with Indiana Congressman Larry Bucshon, who's supporting Steve Scalise for Speaker. First, I asked him what concerned him the most about this situation right now in Congress.
My biggest concerns for the House of Representatives, I think, in an unprecedented fashion, the minority party, the Democrats, went along with 8 Republicans against 210 Republicans to remove a Republican Speaker of the House. I think it's unprecedented. I think the Democrats should have rethought that process, but they didn't. And so going forward, here's what's going to happen. Next week, Tuesday, we'll have a conference of Republicans, House Republicans. We will listen to people who are speaker candidates. So far, we have Jim Jordan from Ohio and Steve Scalise from Louisiana in the race. Our conference will pick a new speaker candidate. We will go to the House floor, hopefully on Wednesday, and the House will have a new speaker that day.
Is there anyone in particular among that group or others that you'd like to see be the next House Speaker?
Well, I'm supporting Steve Scalise. He's the current majority leader. But let me tell you, Jim Jordan is a principled conservative who also would be a great speaker. So I think we've got so far 2 great candidates for Speaker that will move the House forward. Let me just say this about the budget. On 11/17, government funding will run out again, but House Republicans plan to have all of our work done on the appropriations bills. There's 12 of them by that time. Hopefully the U.S. Senate will do the same. We'll get those bills together and reconcile the differences and then pass them on the House floor and properly fund the government without another continuing resolution.
But given what's happened here over the last few days, can your conference be counted on to put together the votes that are needed, not only to keep the government open come next month, but even to select a new House Speaker? Will there be enough votes to make that happen within your party?
Well, I'm hopeful. You know, hope springs eternal, right, as they say. But I think so. I think, you know, Steve Scalise or Jim Jordan, those are the 2 that are in the race, will get 218 votes of House Republicans. I'm very hopeful that that will be the case. You know, as far as moving the government forward, look, I voted for the continuing resolution that included disaster relief money and extension of a couple of important health care programs, for example, community federally qualified health care centers that are in my district and across the country. But we want to fund the government in the regular way. So I'm very hopeful that we will be able to find consensus. But, you know, we have to rely on a small majority of about 4 seats. And if we have 8 people who continue to just do these types of things, then it's going to be a problem. And I guess, you know, what's going to have to happen is we're going to have to rely on Democrat votes to properly fund the government again. And, you know, this is what the 8 people should be thinking about, is that if they want conservative policies passed out of the House, then they can't continue to do this type of thing.
Should there be any repercussions within your conference for Matt Gaetz or other members of that group? Should Gaetz be expelled from the conference, as some have suggested?
I'll leave that to the conference to vote on. You know, I think tensions are high right now. Emotions are really running high. So I think we'll have to seriously think about where we go moving forward. I think Matt describes his own destiny. If he continues to not participate in the House Republican Conference, then, you know, the conference will have to make that decision.